I just wanted to thank you guys for coming tonight, and pardon my voice a little bit. I was a little bit under the weather. I'm feeling better than I sound. So I wanted to talk tonight about those tenant conversations and tenant relationships. I have sort of 4 points that I think are really important to consider when we're talking about tenant relationships. And I think the first thing is, if you really want to win in tenant relationships, think of your tenant as a customer. Okay? And I think when I first started in this industry, I'd come from working 20 years in retail management. At the end of my retail career, because I had had enough, I was burnt out. And I managed larger stores, and I was just at that point in my life where it's like, okay, I got to get away from the sale. And then after a year or two working in my schooling, what I went to school for, working in the veterinary industry, I came kind of happenstance. I came along property management. When I left retail, I called one of my HR managers and I said to her, Dora, I don't know what to do. And I said, I can't do another store. I can't do it. I need to get out. And she goes, oh, Judy, you're born for property management. Too bad you don't live in Toronto. And at the time, this was 2016, I said, I don't think they have that in Windsor. That's what I said. I didn't know about Marda at that point. And then I actually had gone through a change in my life and I needed to rent a place out. And they said, hey, do you want free rent? And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, we need you to clean the thing and just be a superintendent. And I'm like, you're right on. I like free rent. So working in that industry, that was my introduction into property management. And somebody I worked with there referred me to Marla and said, hey, I gave her your number. I'm like, okay. I met Marla, I'll never forget, Friday at, I think, 5:30 at night. And we talked till almost 7 o'clock at night. I fell in love. I fell in love with Marla. I fell in love with Marda, the business, where she had gotten her company to that point, starting off with only 20 units. And what I was most excited about was Marla said to me, how long will it take you to start having an impact on my business? And I said, I'm going to have to learn the ropes, learning what the rules of property management are, but I can hit the ground running on your customer experience. And I think it was really important. It was a really big moment in the trajectory of how Marda evolves. Because when I first started, I don't think we treated our tenants like our customers. I thought, if anything, I wondered at one point, geez, how come you guys don't like your tenants? Right? And it's easy. It's all about apathy, right? Every industry, especially care industries, nurses, even in the veterinary industry that I was working in, and certainly in customer service at retail, we actually talk about apathy and, falling into those routines where you come across like you don't care. You've seen police laughing at a murder scene or nurses kind of giggling at their station while somebody's very, very ill. Well, those are all things like that. This is how people cope, and this is the thing. And so what I found when I got here, I thought, geez, it's so easy to fall into the trap that what a pain in the ass our tenants are, right? Sorry that I cussed, Chris. So it's just Judy. I just thought, I can hear Martin right now saying to me, what did you do that for? So anyway, here's the reality. We have about 1,400 units across the city of Windsor. If you think that per unit, we have 2 people per unit, that's over 2,200 people across the city, 2,700 people. That's about a tenth of our population. And the reality is, every month, 96% of our tenants pay their rent in full. Every month. That's the reality, that most of the tenants, just like most property managers, most landlords, are all in it for all the right reasons, and they're doing the right thing. And it's hard because that last 4% is tough. And they're the ones who take up a lot of your time, a lot of your energy, a lot of your mental capacity. I've had landlords where they have managed their duplex for the last 10 years and it's never been a problem. And I meet them, or Tatiana, bless her, meets them because they're in crisis. You know, very recently we had Theo calling us on the day his world was turned upside down in his property. I can't do this anymore. This is crazy. You know, I just paid a $1,700 gas bill. I've got one tenant who won't pay and the other tenant who doesn't have any hot water. All of these things were just this big issue. He's like, Tatiana, give me this contract. I'm going to sign it right now. So how do we get there is what's important, because what I said to you earlier today, and what I think every landlord should understand, you can do the best job ever vetting your tenant. You can be at your property. You can do all of these things, and somehow, some way, it happens. We get these difficult moments. So how do we approach them? And I think it's setting the tone early on and going right through. So one, if we're treating our tenants like our customers, how do you treat your customers? Right? Like gold. That's right. But if our tenant calls and says, hey, I need something, it's like, oh, why are you bothering me? Aren't you lucky you get to live in my used house? Right? No, that's not the way it is. No, they need something. That's their home. And I think we forget that. It's your house, your investment. No question. I got to baby that all the way through. You're putting your life savings in my hands. But this is only a home. It's where they live. Yes. It's so important that we remember that. And they do pay you your rent. But in exchange for that, you've got a level of service you need to provide. And it's not easy. It's not easy when it's difficult. And it's not easy when it's not difficult. So it's really important to keep in mind that in some fashion, they're your client. They're your customer. When I first started, I had a hard time not calling them client, because that's what we called our customers at the clinic. It's what I worked at a dress shop, very popular dress shop. And we did not ever call a customer. They were all clients, right? In that particular dress shop, it's a Canada-wide brand. I mean, I don't know, is it a problem that I say the name? Okay, Laura Canada. Okay, so Laura Canada, love this company, okay? Laura Canada is a company that is still run by the grandson of the original Laura, who had one dress shop in Montreal in 1930s. And her grandson, Calman, still runs the company today with his sons. And since they took over the business, they grew the business all the way through Canada. They're one of the only stores that has a dedicated plus, petite, and regular department. And then his wife, and then they opened Melanie Lynn, and Melanie Lynn is Calman's wife. And so they really developed their brand. And one of the things I loved about that company was the guy whose name was on the wall ran the company. So he cared about his customers, and he didn't want you calling them customers. He wanted you to call them clients. So, and at Laura, how they made their money, let me tell you, 20% of the customers at Laura Canada make up for 80% of their sales. So how do you think the message is about treating those 20%? You treat them like the gold they are. So I think we must not make assumptions. We must not put every tenant in the same category, treat them like gold until you know differently. And even when you know differently, lowering your level of service because of someone else, is just what does Michelle Obama say? They go low, you go high. Don't lower your level of service because you're mad at somebody, because it's an easy trap, because it'll just get worse, right? We're not de-escalating. Yes. So I think it's really important. Think of your tenant as your customer. How do you treat a customer that you really, really need? You treat that customer like gold. Hello. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. We got Halloween.
Oh, we love Halloween candies. Yeah. The next thing I would say about handling tenants, give them an answer. Give them an answer. One of the things I find is people are afraid to say no, or people are quick to say no, right? Don't just say no. Don't be dismissive. It's not going to work. It doesn't work with your teenagers. Isn't going to work with somebody who's paying for something from you. So don't be dismissive. If you're giving a no, present your no, present why you're giving the no, but make sure you do that. I have somebody here in my office who's dedicated. Their job is to only answer tenant emails. I mean, that's not only, but that's their job. They are the tenant relationship builder, okay? And sometimes when I'm coaching him, I go through these emails and I can see he's, he makes a point and then they make a point and then he makes a point and they make a point and he makes a point and they make a point. I watched this one thread and it went back and forth and back and forth. And I was like, okay. And the truth was the answer that he gave way down here at this thread was the right answer. And it was never going to change our position. So figure out how to deliver a no. Figure out how to be concise, how to be reasonable, and make sure that it's clear. This is our position. I understand you don't agree with my position. This is where we stand today. And make it clear where you stand. I think it's hard to say no to somebody for whatever reason. I've got a lot of self-managing landlords don't like saying no because they're uncomfortable. It's hard to, somebody calls, I'm not going to pay rent this month. Is that okay? Well, the answer is no, that's not freaking okay. No, I have a mortgage to pay. The bank doesn't care if I call and say, hey, my tenant had surgery last week, so I'm not going to pay my mortgage this month, okay? That's not a thing. We know that. But that is the reality of your tenant. So you have to be able to say, no, that's not okay. What can we do? What can you pay today? When can you make another payment? Have you considered going to the rent bank? Have you considered, let me know when you've made your EI application. Open the line of communication, but set the expectation, no, it's not okay. That's a hard thing to say. No is hard to say. So find a way to say no. It doesn't have to be, no is an answer. And sometimes that is what people need. They need the answer. So I think that's a really crucial part of tenant relationship. Don't have the back and forth and go back, especially if your position isn't going to change. My position is going to change on this matter. This is why I've done my best to explain my position. We're not going to continue to answer this email thread. We hope that you understand and that, and then of course, what are they going to say to me? I'm going to sue you. I'm going to call the landlord tenant board. I'm going to call my lawyer. Please. Absolutely. You know what? I always encourage absolutely everybody to understand what their obligations and responsibilities are, just like I expect to know those for my people. And I encourage you, please, the legal clinic is free. The LTB, you can call them. Please go ahead and do that. I encourage you to understand your rights and obligations. There's nothing wrong with them saying that. Yes. What do you think a judge says when he says, I'm going to appeal you? Please do. Please do. So it's so important at the end of the day, make your position clear. And if it's a no, it's a no. But be respectful and get to the point. Not something I do easily. Ask anybody who knows me.
I've got a question. You said a word that I've never heard before. Tell them to go to the rent bank. What is rent bank?
Well, Rent Bank's a great program here in the city of Windsor that helps people who are struggling to maintain their rental payments, they can be already in the system through ODSP and Ontario Works, but they don't have to be. So right now I have a gentleman who unfortunately got a bad infection. He's been off work for a month. So now he's struggling. And it's like, okay, listen, I haven't been paid in a month. I'm finally getting my EI next week. But he also hasn't eaten in a month. He also hasn't paid his phone bill and his hydro and everything else, right? And we know that EI is 40% of your income, right? So he goes like, but good news, I'm cleared to go back to work in 2 weeks. I'm going to get caught up. Okay, well.
But they have to apply, right?
That's right.
As a landlord, we cannot do that.
They need to go. And all they need to do is understand that when you don't pay your rent, we issue what's called an N4. The N4 is the first step in the legal process. I can ask you to pay your rent, which we do around the 5th, like, hey, just a reminder, rent was due on the 1st, get it in. Then around the 8th, pretty much everybody who meant to and could pay in the early days have done so, and we issue the N4. It's the first step that preserves my property owner's right. Should you just never pay rent and never talk to me again? The N4. And so once you've issued that N4 and the person calls and says, oh my God, I'm so sorry, and all these things, oh my goodness, so sorry to hear this. Guess what? There's a program here at the City of Windsor. They'll pay up to 2 months of your rent if you're facing eviction.
Is that a private company? Is it
No, it's the City of Windsor.
And the City of Windsor, do they charge them interest?
They do not. They don't make them pay it back.
Really?
No.
They don't make it pay it back?
They do not make you pay it back. It is meant to support people just like minimum wage or people who, those workers who can show, listen, I just had a hiccup here. I've got an N4. I'm getting back to work. I'm going to be good after this.
Rent bank.
The rent bank, yeah.
Look it up.
I'll get you the link. I'm going to get you the link. Yeah.
You can call through.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get you on our mailing list, I promise you. But absolutely. And so we let people know about this program as much as we can, because it's meant for people who need a little bit of help.
County, Windsor or Windsor Essex?
Right at the City of Windsor website.
Windsor Essex.
Windsor Essex County, that's right. Chatham has their own.
Does it include Leamington?
I think Leamington might have their own. I know Chatham has their own.
Do we have a property in Leamington? We've accessed it through Windsor.
I thought it was accessed through Windsor for Leamington. I think the City of Windsor handles the rent bank for the entire county.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's a great program because it's really meant to help those people out. Now, they only cover 2 months of rent, but that's a great thing. And they do want, they'll call me, Judy, I have so-and-so. They say that they owe 2 months plus half a month's rent. Is that true? Yes, that's true. If they pay you that $500 that they owe for half a month and I give you the rent these other 2 months plus the filing fee, will that save the tenancy? And I'm very honest. Generally, the answer is yes. Sometimes it's like, don't bother.
You have to give an N4.
It's usually, the city wants it. The city wants you to know that they're facing a potential eviction. So it doesn't have to be, if you hadn't issued one, issue one. And tell them, I'm issuing this.
In Leamington, I've got, you know, stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So you just issue it. And the thing is it really helps people because it is a little bit of money that you don't have to pay back. And it gets them back on track, keeps them in good standing. And the whole thing is one thing the City of Windsor doesn't need right now is a whole bunch of people out on eviction because they had a hiccup in their life. But they can pay their rent going forward. And that's what they want to know the most. And you can access it every 2 years, up to every 2 years.
Every 2 years they can access to this. And it's just 2 months.
It is just 2 months.
It's a lot.
2
Yeah,
months every 2 years.
that's right. Yeah. So it's not meant to be a catch-all, it's meant for exactly the kind of situation or somebody who's on OW and things just got very expensive or whatever it is. Those come through a lot faster because they're already in the system, but otherwise we get Barb from the city, love her. She'll give me a call, ask me if it's going to save the tenancy. I say, of course it will. She sends me the check and I let my owner know you're going to wait a couple more weeks, but we're going to be caught up and we're good to go. So it's a great program. So that's what you need to be armed with. Is no, it's not okay. What are you doing? I'm going to give you every solution I can, but you're going to have to get to work here and solve your problem. Okay? So with us saying no, that was my third. The next thing is it's your property, so treat yourself like the boss. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I shouldn't say boss because I hate the word boss. I don't hate the word boss. I don't hate it. Boss, here's the thing about a boss. It's easy to be a boss. I have somebody here who loves to be a boss, loves to boss people around and is really good at it. Now, if you're really running a company, what are you doing? You're managing, right? You're managing people. And when you're managing people, first thing you got to do is whenever you run into a problem, it's like, oh, this employee, they're calling in sick and they got a crappy attitude. Guess what the first thing you got to do?
Understand the whole situation, communicate.
what am I doing to contribute to this? What am I doing? What's going on? Is our culture not good? Is there a reason they're calling in sick? Are they struggling with their manager? Do they not feel like they can talk to me? That's on you. You're the boss. You're the leader. And if your first thing is, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to work it out, then you know what's going to happen. You're going to fire that employee, or they're going to quit because they're going to feel the writing's on the wall. And maybe that's what needs to happen, but it's not the way it needs to happen. Your responsibility as manager is to be insightful, because if you choose just to let people go and, oh, they must not have been a good fit for me, and just let them go, right? Well, oh, wait, then the next person comes along and shoot, they're calling in sick now. So at some point, the earlier you ask, what am I doing wrong? The faster you're going to get to better solutions and better relationships. That's true in every relationship, but it's especially true in your property, your investment. You're the boss. So you're going to have those difficult conversations. You've got to figure out, what are you doing to contribute to this issue? If you were wishy-washy at day one about them paying their rent late, don't be so surprised when they think they can just skip a month and that you're going to be okay with it, because you didn't say, no, I'm not okay with it. I'm going to help you sort this out, but I am not okay with that. It's easier to say, okay, I'll get you next month. That's easier, right? And then now you've got a 2-month problem. And then all of a sudden it's 3 months. And then, with the way rents are right now, all of a sudden you got a $20,000 problem that you are never going to dig out of, and neither are they. Because you weren't comfortable saying no, because you weren't acting like the leader of your own company, right?
At the end of the day, you're responsible and accountable.
That's right.
You have those conversations.
That's right. Responsible and accountable. And then the last piece for me, and this is the most important piece, and I probably, referring to Laura, I learned the most about this at Laura Canada, but we've done a ton of work here at Marda Management about this. I'm going to talk about personality. And I saved it for last for a reason, because it had to be prefaced by what I just said. It's your job to understand who you're talking to when you're the leader. I'm the leader of my team. I have a very dynamic group of people who work here at Marda Management. It brings, the nature of this business brings in strong personalities. And everybody, because every single job, that people do here is hard. It's a lot of work. It's busy. I can't tell you how many times in a day somebody will look at a clock around here and go, oh my God, because they just can't believe the day goes by. That isn't attractive to a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that's attractive to. The people that's attractive to have strong personalities. So as the leader of my company, I need to understand that. And I need to understand the nuances of who I'm talking to. And the way I can do that the best is understanding myself. And understanding as much about me from a personality standpoint as possible. And then learning as much about the other personality types that are out there that we deal with every day. So one of the things we do here at Marda Management, and this is on offer to all of our owners as well, is we use a program called Predictive Index. And the Predictive Index is a very quick little, I think you answer 2 sheets of questions, and I think it takes, it took me less than 10 minutes. It's not hard, but it's amazing how bang on it is. You put it through and it puts you in 17 different categories. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I think Chris, Chad, and I are all Mavericks.
Adventure.
You're an adventurer. Okay, even different. So Chad and I are both Mavericks. My boss, Marla, is a captain. Marla is a captain, and she's a captain through and through, let me tell you. So the reason Marla Coffin started this business with 20 units, grew it to 1,500 units, went and had a baby, came back, opened 3 more companies, then went and had another couple babies, and now she's starting a new business, is because she's a captain. When you look at that personality, she's a driver. She doesn't take no for an answer. She doesn't wait. She asks you again. Sometimes she makes decisions very fast and moves forward. Not always the best thing to do, but those are all of her strengths, and that's why she's built the business to where she's at today. What's different about me than her is I'm a maverick. So I'm not high on detail. Everybody knows this about me, but I'm the kind of person that they're like, geez, I just don't know how we're going to solve this problem. And I'm like, well, couldn't we do this? And they're like, yeah, I don't worry about, well, geez, how would we ever make that happen? I don't ever think that in proposing an idea. I'll throw everything at the wall and then figure it out. That's my nature. You call me up and say, hey, you want to go to Detroit for the afternoon? I'm probably going to say yes. If you tell me, hey, next month I'm coming to Windsor and on Friday we're going to go to Detroit for the night and we're going to do this and we're going to go there, probably going to cancel on you. It's just a different way of thinking. It's who we are, right? So what do you have to know about me to get along with me? And what do I have to know about you to get along with you? Well, if you're the leader of the company, your business, your asset, then it's your job to understand how your personality is going to affect this. Because let me tell you, there are tenants that you need to be, I'm so sorry to hear that. What can I do for you? And then they say, oh, you know what? I understand nothing really can be done. I understand. So, thanks so much. And, hopefully things are going to get better and we're all going to, yeah, great. And that tenant's happy. You have other tenants that you have to be a lot more direct with. I'm really sorry you're unhappy with my decision. This is my position. I'm not going to continue to argue it. I hope that you can respect that. But you got to know who you're talking to. And first thing about knowing who you're talking to is how you talk. And so what we offer is that we like for our owners to do a predictive index for us. I want to know if you're a captain or a maverick. I know how to talk to a maverick all day long. I know if I'm talking to, I have somebody in maintenance who is an analyzer. Guess what they do? They're a thinker, right? They're a thinker. You don't just go and stop in the hall and say, hey, I got an idea for you. I think you should do this. You can do that to Chad all day long, and he's going to say, I think you should do that. And none of that. I think you should do that with it. And off you go. Everything's great. That's how Judy and Chad work. But then Judy and Chad walk away and forget we actually should plan this, and somebody needs to do it. So we've got to partner up with a planner. But if I stop an analyzer like that, they're just like, what, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. And they'll just tell me yes or whatever they want. And then they go back to their desk and I've overwhelmed them. I've stopped them from what they're doing. Now they're thinking about my project. And I probably am not going to get any great response on it because they're going to give up. They're going to be like, is that even real? Does she really need my input on that? And then if she doesn't action, I'm not going to do it. Right? So you got to be careful with those folks. That's the kind of person who's like, hey, I have an idea. I'm going to send this to you in an email. I want you to think about it, and then let's talk about it. Let them read that email first. If I send an email to Chad and say, hey, I want to meet you in the boardroom. Here's all the details. He's not going to read the email till we get to the boardroom. He'll print it and then read it right before the boardroom. That's what I do. I know that's what Chad will do. But I'm on my thinker, I better send it to them at least 2 days because they're going to come in there, not just with the email, but they're going to come in there with their email that has about 12 pages worth of responses. Because they're ready, okay? And you need both people at your table in a business like this. So how does that translate for the tenant? Well, if you know who you are, if you're an analyzer, maybe you aren't the best person to talk to your tenant. Maybe your husband should talk to your tenant because he's the maverick. And maybe you each need to at different times depending on what it is you need to do. If you need to say no and the analyzer's not, they don't really have problems saying no. Right? No one, I need to think about this. I'm not ready to make a decision. Maverick's like, oh yeah, no problem. We can make that work. And the other is like, what are you talking about? So no one's trade out. The number one thing around here sometimes is you need a second voice. You need a second voice. When I first started, everybody at Marda knows Kathy. Kathy used to sit up at the front in the office, and she does all of she does our adjudication today. But at the time, she was a lot more involved in the day-to-day business and such. And she would be up at the front, and people would come in, and she'd say, no, I'm sorry, you need to give 60 days notice. I can't take 30 days notice. And they'd argue with her, and she loved a good fight, so she'd argue right back. And then after a minute, she'd say, you know what, let me go get my boss. And out she'd come to the bullpen, grab the first person that she said. I said, listen, I told them that they need to give me 60 days. They only want to give me 30 days. Please go and tell them. I told them that I'm getting you and that you'll explain and say, okay, let me know. So, oh, yeah, I understand. Unfortunately, listen, we're a big company. It's really hard for us to bend the rules for some and not none, not never. But in this case, I do need the 60 days notice. What can we do to make that happen today? I didn't say anything different than Kathy did. I was just a different voice, and I certainly wasn't her boss. I am today, but I wasn't then. And she didn't care who she grabbed. She would grab the first person she would, and she'd just go over there. So it was an interesting technique. It wasn't necessarily how I'd present it, but it was an interesting technique that we learned really early on. Sometimes people need a second voice. Yeah. One of the things I'm training Chad to do, because he's the primary client services person for the last 2.5 years, and as he's elevating into more of a leadership role, I need him to be the second voice. I said, don't get into every one of these. Hand that off and let you be the second voice, right? And there are times, I'll tell you about personality. There are certain personality types I don't do well. I like a fight too. I'm a Libra and I love to debate. So I love to get in a good fight. It's not always the right answer. And there's certain personality types, it gets you tense. I have certain personality type. When they call, I'm just like, right away I start, and I know it's not my best self. So I don't take those calls. I let Chad talk to them. and I'll let you know. And not just Chad, Justin's great. Ed is a little more like Judy. We have different people. We have certain tenants that we only let Laura talk to. And it's all about using the person that we know will match that energy and isn't going to be bothered by this person acting in for me, they're just being demanding and mean. I find them mean. I don't think they're trying to be mean. That's how I feel, so I get my back up. So I excuse, and guess what? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. When I worked at Lower Canada, we used to have a client come in. We had to have a certain amount of appointments. And this one girl worked really hard. She was fostering this really nice lady. But every time a client came in for a special appointment, I was supposed to make myself known and offer a coffee and all this other. So I went in, hi, Judy. And my team member comes up to me. She's like, I don't know, please don't be offended, but my client doesn't want you around. And let me tell you, I felt so bad for her because she was so uncomfortable telling me that, but I got it. It wasn't, my ego was out of the way. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm loud, I talk a lot, all of these things. This was a very quiet, petite lady working with a very quiet, petite lady. So yeah, it didn't surprise me one tiny bit that she was like, she's not gonna be here, right? Like, I'm here for you. So we have to accept we're not everybody's cup of tea. You need to accept your tenant, not every tenant you meet is going to be your cup of tea. So it's really important that if you are going to manage those tenant relationships, know who you're talking to and be prepared with some tools. Be prepared with answers, be prepared to say no, be prepared to hand off that conversation to somebody with a different voice, your husband, your business partner, your friend, whoever it is. Or even better, hire Marda. We're really good at it. We're really good at it. I can't tell you how many situations we have navigated through. Very difficult situations for the tenant and the owners, And at the end of the day, it's really my ethos to approach it with the 4 techniques or 4 important points that I just talked about. Consider your tenant your customer. Learn how to say no. Understand you're the leader of your company and that comes with your responsibility. You're accountable. If you have a shitty tenant who hasn't paid you, if you have a crappy tenant that hasn't paid you for 6 months and you're really worn out by that, guess what? There's accountability. There's some accountability there. If you haven't served the N4, offered them the bank, gone to a paralegal, done all of the things that you should be doing up until that point to make sure that the bleeding is going to stop. And a lot of times people come to us paralyzed in their mess. It's just gotten to a certain point And they're like, Theo, what can we do? And and it's sometimes I'll take those contracts all day long. They can be thankless sometimes because that person is mad at me after a month. My tenant's still not paying me rent. My tenant, the landlord tenant board is how many months out? I have to put up with this for how long? It's like, let's keep working through this. Let's keep trying to talk to this tenant. Let's keep trying to negotiate. Are you willing to buy her out? All of these things, because we've literally faced every possible scenario. We're just ready to go with those tools. You shouldn't have those tools. You haven't been managing over 1,000 units for the last 14 years. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you about dealing with those difficult situations. I don't want to say difficult tenants because there are difficult tenants, but there's also difficult landlords.
Yeah.
That's the reality. There are harder things to, I have a tenant right now who's stealing hydro from another unit. It literally is driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy. I've called the police. I've done everything I can do, and I still can't solve the problem. It's driving me nuts, right? So trust me, it's not that I don't think there's bad tenants. I just think they're really few and far between. And I think that you have to understand what's happened to get us here. And you better start taking some accountability for it at the end of the day, because if you don't, then it's going to happen again. If you don't figure out where could I have stopped this in this mess before we got here today, and you're going to keep renting on your own and not work with a property management company, which not everybody needs to or has to. I understand that completely. But empower yourself, consult, call, can I talk to you about this problem? Get a paralegal, do those things, educate yourself, but take accountability, take ownership, and understand it's your problem to solve. It's your problem to solve. And you can do that doing those things. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we're talking about next month's event?
Yes, October 29th, we are going to be talking about what every investment owner should know. Heading into it, I'd love to head everybody off at the pass, but what do you need to know? We have a great partner that we work with. Her name's Tracy, and she has a company called Design Your Reality. And her whole business is getting investors ready. She doesn't let you even have a rental until you go through her course, because she knows there's so much that you need to know before you ever talk about which property you're going to buy. And so I'm really, really excited. Design Your Reality.
So that's the company.
Yeah, that's the name of the company. So she owns a lot, some rentals here in Windsor. Also, I think she does some New Brunswick stuff, but she brings clients who are, it's a really great business idea, but what I love about her ideas, and I love about working with her clients, is they know. They're ready. They're ready. They understand they need money in the bank. They understand that last month's rent needs to get put away as a kitty just in case. They already know to understand how old their furnace is, their roof is, all of these things that you may, hey, I could buy this house for $300,000, and you think you're going to be rolling in it in any minute. Well, that sometimes, but not all times. And what you need to know. So this is probably one of my favorite events that's coming. I love this one. This was one of my favorites because it speaks to me. But this one I'm really excited to present to the team. October 29th, same place, same time. And I'm really excited about bringing that forward to our investors.